All right, big day in politics. Let's bring in our political panel. Joining me, former Liberal advisor David Gazzard and former DPG advisory as well, and former Labor advisor Eamonn Fitzpatrick from Fitzpatrick Advisory. Thanks both for your time, gentlemen. Eamonn, I might start with you. It's a big day for the Yes campaign. There was a sense of being able to talk positively, have, a quite big event and uplifting speeches as well. Is this the pivot that the Yes campaign really needs at the moment?
It's certainly a much needed booster rocket. I think we've seen a lot of back and forth over recent weeks. There's been a lot of questions around momentum and getting that going. A campaign event like this is actually what is needed. I think the choice of location says it all. There's clearly a view that, that probably it's in South Australia is one of the states where there's a lot to play for. So I thought that was a particularly interesting and smart choice to put to have that campaign launched there, so to speak. But really, it is an all-hands-on-deck situation, I think, for the Yes campaign. Certainly, we're a long way from where they were at the start of the year. We've just seen those national polls consistently fall away in terms of support. There's certainly, there's certainly room to make up, I think, for that, given that we are October 14. So a short, sharp campaign, a lot of activity, a lot of presence on the streets, a lot of door knocking, a mobilised army. I think those are the sort of things people are looking for. They definitely want a bit of reassurance.
Yeah, barring a groundswell, it looks like they need to win Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania and South Australia. It feels that simple right now. David, in terms of the No campaign's response, I guess, to Yes being able to have a pretty positive day with who we hear from and, the background and some of the young kids talking and so on, do they need to be cautious of sounding, quite negative in their approach, or is that just how things roll when you're doing any No campaign for, well, anything really, but for a referendum in particular?
You look at the campaign material that the No campaign is putting out, and it really sort of seems to be a creating round. If you don't understand it, don't vote for it, which is sort of what has been the that was Paul Keating's line on John Hewson's GST package, as I remember. But forget today. I mean, today's going to get the news and so on and so forth. You've got 4 states, those key states, and Eamonn is right about those key states. Over the next 6 weeks, there's probably minimum $50 million to spend, and a lot of it is going to go into those 4 states. You can't imagine it's going to be 10 million plus a week, which is twice as much as a federal campaign. That's the lower limit. You can't imagine how much media that is going to buy you in Tasmania. That gets you everything. That will get you wall-to-wall advertising.
Because you don't need, and the point about that, I guess, is you're not sort of spending money on candidates and the PM, right? It's just one message you're spending money on. So that's why it's amplified in terms of how that will feel to voters.
They've got more money than God for the next 6 weeks, paid for by companies like Qantas, and it's going to be everywhere, complete saturation. So the No campaign really has to sort of counter, and I would imagine they would start saying, the Yes campaign brought to you by big business and elites. That's where they will want to go. But it is really hard to counter that much money. At issue here is whether or not, unlike a federal campaign where you might be persuaded in the last week of the campaign on balance with one particular policy to stay with a party or to switch sides, in this one, the real question is whether or not a hard convert to the No or the Yes camp is going to change their mind once it's been made up, no matter how much money is getting spent.
Eamonn, how do you think the Yes side, and I guess in particular the Labor side of politics, is feeling about things? Because I don't think they thought they'd start the campaign realistically a decent distance behind if you wound back a year. I know there's a lot of hard heads around these things being difficult to win, but it's a tricky position, isn't it? And I'm sure some are sort of contemplating what defeat looks like, as in whose fault it might be and what you do with the issue after that, because you can legislate it, but is that going against what voters have said at that point?
Well, let's just say, it's definitely a wake-up call for a lot of people. I think part of the issue was there was basically no campaign to begin with. So I think there was a little bit of feeling that just because Yes started so strong, and that was earned with relatively little effort, if you like, that there was nothing to sort of fight for, and there was nothing to compete against. That quickly sort of got that was quickly brought down to earth, I think, once the No campaign got underway. So certainly it's a wake-up call, and it's come at a pretty good time. But I do think, if anything, it will galvanise. And I think there's been thinking around a shorter, more focused campaign is absolutely what you need. Look, I agree with David. I think it's going to be really hard to pull a hardened supporter one way or the other in the final week. But I think there's a lot of work to be done around some of those people with softer options who are still having a look, who might not know all the issues. That's not an ideal place. You don't want to be educating people so close. But I still think a short, sharp, intense campaign, plenty of media coverage, plenty of social media coverage, I think that will go a long way.